This is your orientation for CRJ or Legal Studies courses and our programs from the perspective of me, Tom Higgins. And if you're taking one of my courses in either legal studies or criminal justice, except for the internships, you can expect a podcast like this, something very similar to this orientation for many of your courses each week. Not always, but it should be an expectation. And I'll give you a hint for your success in my courses. Listen to the podcast. And while you can listen to these files in your car, at the gym, before you go to sleep at night, maybe while you sleep, whenever, wherever, you should at some point listen with a pen and paper at your computer, ready to take notes. Because essentially, this is your opportunity to have my voice in sort of the traditional college course one-on-one. So assuming you have the ability to listen and take notes, let's get rolling. First off, as I said, my name is Tom Higgins. And some of you know me, some of you had me for other classes possibly. Maybe you looked me up, maybe you found the ICC Law website. And if you haven't, you need to find that and bookmark it. But to give you a little quick background, I'm an ICC grad. I'm a first-generation college graduate, which means that prior to me, no one else in my family, going back to my parents, grandparents, etc., had completed college. I began my college education here at ICC. I was a student and a member of the men's basketball team back in, a long time ago, in the 80s, the first half of the 80s. While I was a student at ICC, I also worked as a public safety cadet before graduating in 1985 with a degree in law enforcement. I went on to Bradley to study the administration of criminal justice, and while at Bradley, I turned 21, and the chief of the public safety department, now known as campus police, was a retired Peoria City officer by the name of Robert Walker, sort of a legend, especially in the sense that he was one of the first African-American police officers in Peoria and then one of the first local African-American police chiefs. But he was more a legend just because of his policing exploits. He had done about everything. He was a very active police officer, and I was pretty fortunate to have him take me under his wing, and he hired me as an officer after I turned 21 while I was still going to school at Bradley. I worked here until graduating from Bradley in 1987, and then moved to the Chicago area and continued in law enforcement, eventually pursuing my Juris Doctor, my law degree. I graduated in 1990 from what is now the University of Illinois Chicago Law School. It was for many, many years the John Marshall Law School. The University of Illinois acquired it a few years back. I also have a Master of Online Teaching from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Now I'll share along the way in different courses some of my professional experiences, across the board as relevant. But for the purposes of this orientation, you should know this. I've taught here since 1996. I've taught probably every class that we have available in any of the programs that you might be in, except for you 911 folks. I have not taught the to dispatch specific courses, though I did at one time do some dispatch work. Both at ICC, we would give the dispatchers a break, and then at one job I had, the chief was adamant that we spend a couple weeks at each, I think it was every 6 months or something like that, working dispatch. And the reason he did that was that he wanted us to see things on the other side of the equation and get some perspective. And that actually was a pretty good thing. But anyway, other than that, I think I probably taught about any course you're going to have over the years. I also have both the internships, the criminal justice internship that's required for the 911 and law enforcement students and is optional for criminal justice students, although it should be something, especially if you want to go into law enforcement or probation or something you should be required to take so you know before you go and get a bachelor's degree that in criminal justice that it's something you want to do. And it's a great course, great option. It's offered every 8 weeks, fall and spring, and then during the 8-week summer session. And I also have the legal studies internship that gets people out in typically in employment situations because they go into their employment situation and working in different things supporting the civil side of law, although sometimes they work for state's attorney's offices and something related to the more criminal side of the courthouse. If you have specific concerns about a course, go to your instructor. So if it's my course, come to me. If it's another instructor, go to that instructor. So don't come to me with concerns about something I am not teaching, okay? Your instructors, just like me, will share their respective experience and their expectations for you in each course. And like me, your instructor comes to a course with two things in mind. Number one, we want to see you successful, and we want to see you go to work in law and justice. We've devoted our lives to law and justice in some way. We have a level of competence, we've had success, and we've had an intent to get you there. All right, so that's number one. The other is we want to see you put in the work to earn your knowledge and skill that's going to help you develop so you can be one of those competent and successful individuals. That's why we're here. It's not about giving you a grade or an assignment or grading an assignment. It's about those things. I want to talk a little bit about program history because graduates of the law and justice programs at Illinois Central College are unique. Some of our programs are the only types of programs or programs of this type in the entire region, and we have people working all over the region and really throughout the country. So you should know a little bit about the history, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about the history. Our first program was police science, which is now law enforcement. It was begun in 1969, 2 years after the college opened, by Roy, who had the nickname of Doc, Roy Doc Wright. I called him Doc. Doc was a police officer. Doc's since passed away, but Doc was a police officer who went to law school and became a lawyer. Criminal justice came along 3 decades later in response to this national trend for bachelor's degrees in criminal justice, primarily by this thought process that it should be more sociology or criminology based, and that we could figure out the reasons for crime. And if you're going into law enforcement, we got away from some of the technical things. if you're going into law enforcement, that's where you want to go. I think that you should focus towards our law enforcement degree, not the criminal justice degree, because you don't get or have the requirements that you have for other courses or other of the criminal justice program that is going to help you down the road. Courses like the CRJ 227 course is an example, or the internship. Legal studies came along in 1989, and it was initially intended, and for a long time, supported positions that were paralegal or legal assistant, and that's still a large number of the employment opportunities. But now we see our graduates from those programs, the legal study program, going to work in a variety of different things depending on their other educational background, and we encourage people to get one of our transfer degrees with the legal studies certificate, and then if they don't already have a bachelor's degree, then go on to get a bachelor's degree. They may be working in human resources, risk management, maybe working for a traditional law firm, working at the courthouse, and various functions that legal studies education supports. And then many of our legal studies certificate students go on to law school. And they get to law school with, a big leg up on being able to do legal research and understand the law, and to a large degree know the law from a very practical and practice-based orientation, more so than they'll probably get in law school. Graduates of that program include judges, lawyers, paralegals, legal assistants, corporate executives of all types. Now, I tend to refer to our programs as law and justice, and sometimes public service programs. And I do that because we prepare you to do work to serve the public in law and justice careers. The fact of the matter is that you can often, translate some of your education in any of these programs to something else in law and justice, and a lot of our students may end up with a couple of these programs that we offer. For instance, we've had students that started out in the 911 program and came back to get law enforcement degrees and go to work as police officers. We've had students that have started out in that 911 program and come back to get the legal studies. There's one student who came back and started in the 911 program. She then went to the CRJ program and earned her legal studies post-degree certificate at the same time, went to work for law firms, and eventually got her bachelor's degree and went to law school and passed the bar exam the first time. She's a medical malpractice lawyer in Peoria right now. So we come from all different backgrounds. Many of our legal studies certificate students who don't have a degree get a degree in either criminal justice or business, depending on what their orientation or intent is to work in the law. And then our CRJ grads, they go on to typically transfer to Western or ISU or Bradley or University of Illinois Springfield to finish their bachelor's degree. And then a lot of those people lately have been finding or going to employment before they ever finish that degree. Anytime you want any advice about any of that, about job opportunities, or any of that, and I'll close talking a little bit about this as well, find me and we'll talk about it. We have an ICC Law webpage. It should be linked to your Canvas course site, but if you Google ICC Law, you will find it. It's the extension is info, so it's icclaw.info or icclaw.blogspot. That's the host, blogspot, blogspot.com. Either one of those will get you there. But you should bookmark it because it's a key to program information, advisement, enrollment information, more importantly, jobs and program-specific links. Our graduates and our employers come back to this site regularly, and you should start using it and come back to it as well. I want to move on to some tips that'll help you be successful in our programs. Tips that translate to being successful in your law and justice career. The first topic is professionalism. Now, why would I be talking about professionalism when you just signed up for a college course? Most of the jobs you hope to get after you earn your degree or certificate require that you take and uphold an oath. You'll take an oath. The oath will in some way require that you abide and follow the Constitution and laws of the United States and the state of Illinois. And it's not an if, it's a must. It's not an oops, sorry, it's an oops, fired if you violate that oath. And I'm sure you've seen examples of people in law enforcement and other areas of law and justice who get in trouble, embarrassed, and perhaps convicted of a crime and sent to jail themselves for violating this oath. If this is a career that you want to take part in, if you want to be whatever it is you want to be in law and justice, start adopting the expectations for professionalism today. And we will share what those expectations are, but we can't choose to adopt those things. And it's really simple, okay? It's not complicated. There are certain things that most of you are probably doing, at least to a large degree, but these are the things that you probably need to think about. Abide by the law. Law says you wear your seatbelt, wear your seatbelt. Law says you drive a speed limit, drive a speed limit. Law says if you're not of age, don't drink, don't drink. Abide by the law. Work to avoid breaking the law. Be honest. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. Don't do things you may be expected to arrest or cite other people for doing if you're fortunate enough to land a position in your desired career field. Don't do things that you'll be expected to serve other people in, trying to get themselves straightened out from, or as victims having to dig themselves out of a hole somebody's put them in because they've done things that related to lying, cheating, stealing, breaking the law. Now this one might be difficult, but sometimes it means you don't hang out with certain people who may be doing things that run contrary to the law, especially if you're planning to go into one of the certified careers like law enforcement. There will be a background check. And if that background check comes back to show that even if you were never arrested, you show up on police reports because you're always hanging around with people that do get arrested, it may prevent you or cause you trouble getting a job. Going to honesty. Sometimes it means you lose points in class because you forgot to do the work on time and you don't make excuses or expect to pass because you won't get a pass or expect excuses on that basis on the job. Sometimes it means you have consequences that may not be pleasant. But if you develop these traits and you make these things expectations for yourself now, in this course, in this program, if you make the commitment to work or live within these standards, you're going to have adapted. You will have adapted. You will be living and working with the character and professionalism that's going to be expected of you in these careers. So do this right now. And experience has shown that people who work diligently to master and abide by the professional responsibility and character expectations for their respective career field end up in better jobs with more satisfying careers, less drama, less issues, and they stay employed. You're going to find success if you adapt, if you accept and adapt to and practice expectations for professionalism now. Start thinking of professionalism in that regard. Okay? Act with professionalism. The next topic, organization. Most public service jobs are document and information intensive. Organizing and communicating this information requires that you plan and put in a significant amount of time and effort. Our successful graduates set aside time to plan their assigned work tasks in order to make their workflow smoother and more efficient and their work product the best it can be. They organize their work. They're detailed. They have to-do lists. They get things done on time. They don't miss deadlines. They don't need to make apologies or excuses. They get the work done to the best of their ability. Now, you're going to be encouraged to develop your own systems, and you know your schedule. You know what else you're juggling, work, kids, whatever. Figure out what you need to do to stay organized, because guess what? You're going to have to do it when you're on the job. Experience has shown that students use calendars, to-do lists. They update those lists. They review their calendars. They put in the effort to meet their assignments with the utmost effort to the best of their ability. They do well in class, and more importantly, they do well in their careers. Communication. Whether it's talking to clients, interviewing a victim or witness, or working with other law and justice or court personnel, you're going to be expected to have good people skills and to communicate verbally, in person, by the telephone, whatever. And especially in writing. You're going to be recording and conveying anything you learn in those verbal communications. So you're going to have to retain what you hear and transfer it to paper accurately. Paper or the computer, you know what I'm talking about. You have to document. We document almost everything we hear, see, or do. With dates, times, people, the subject matter, every detail of the conversation. So you're going to have to develop your active listening skills and practice your active listening skills. And if you don't know what I'm talking about by active listening skills, go do a little investigation. You'll hear me talk about it, but you should start learning some of these things and being interested. Writing skills and written communication are essential to every one of these careers. Now, most of the writing comes by way of reports or memorandums required in your daily tasks. Police officers, as an example, are expected to document every interaction and conversation with anyone they interact with in an official capacity. Legal assistants, paralegals, lawyers are involved in drafting court documents and correspondence and recording information that they learn from witnesses, etc. 911 folks, you're documenting every aspect of every interaction, every second of your workday, both verbally and via keyboard. And most every form of communication by any of you in your jobs will be subject to review of your supervisor, your peers, lawyers, court personnel, judges, and for some of you, the public from the witness stand. So take the time to plan and make these written communications something that will reflect well of you and accurately of the facts that you're going to seek to communicate. Formal professional communication is expected in the careers, and that's what we expect in the class. Forget about AI, except to check your grammar and spelling. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but it's not accepted in these classes, not my classes. You can't take AI with you when you're called on the hot seat or you're sitting in the witness seat on the witness stand before a judge or jury. You can't take AI into your boss and say, well, this is why I turned in the report and this is what it said. This is what ChatGPT told me to say. You won't be employed very long. We need your thoughts. You're going to be accountable for your thoughts. To that end, no cutting, pasting, or plagiarizing. If you do that, you use AI, you cut, paste, or plagiarize, you're not going to fare well in the careers, and I'm not going to pass you along because I don't want to hear it from the employers, and I hear it from the employers if I would do something like that. I want you to be successful, and I need our employers to have competent, quality people. Now, experience has shown that students who meet the expectations of communication, both verbal and written, you find job satisfaction in your career field. So practice these things. Let's talk about effort. And I don't know why we should have to talk about effort, because it should be assumed that you have to put into effort. But we need a little frank and clear discussion of the expectations of effort. It's become commonplace for a few students to expect to get credit when work isn't turned in on time or it's turned in late or not at all. They want extra credit. You don't get extra credit when you didn't do the work. You don't show up for work. Is the boss going to give you overtime at time and a half or double time? No. Don't turn in work that's clearly lacking effort when compared to the work done by other students. Don't turn it in late. Go back to professionalism. Recognize what the expectations are going to be on the job and start reflecting that in your effort. Not long ago, a student who claimed a desire to work as a police officer complained to one of the advisors that he didn't like some of our courses because there was too much reading and writing. I'm sure most of you are aware that police officers spend a significant amount of time reading and writing. They write reports on nearly everything they do during the shift except maybe go to the bathroom, and there's likely a record of when they stopped working during the shift to go to the bathroom. Law and justice careers are all about reading and writing in some manner. And we can point to this being something the student came to expect in another college course or high school courses. And I have students tell me this occasionally. I wasn't expected to do this or that in high school. Okay. Yada, yada, yada. Whatever the excuse, move on. There's no discussion. We won't have a debate. None of us have the time to waste. You're here now. You say you're here because you want a job in law and justice. You want to learn about what we're teaching in these courses. So step it up. Do what you need to do. This isn't to say that we won't entertain reasonable requests for extensions, and we do, but we're looking for requests that are made before the deadline. And they're the type of excuses you'd be expected to have a pass on or some leniency or extra time if it was in an employment situation. So verifiable illness, family emergencies, children or family needs, death, work or employment-related issues, any military commitments. But give the instructor a call or shoot them an email before the event or before the deadline. And trust me, people do this. It's doable, just like if you were going to work. You're sick, you know you got to be at work. You don't call them the next day and say, hey, I know I was supposed to have been there yesterday, but I was sick. Now, if you had some catastrophic thing and you can't make the phone call, I mean, you're in a coma or something, and you don't have any ability to even tell somebody or ask somebody. And I'll tell you, I had... Now, I'll tell you about that later, some other time. In any event, verifiable excuses that would have been acceptable in employment and make the communication. If you do that, you're going to have support. If you don't do that, you won't. And as fair notice and warning, and some of you know this because you've had Canvas courses, Canvas keeps data for the days, times, and information you access. In our career fields, we call this evidence. So if you call me and you say, hey, I've been working on this, I've put a lot of time in, and I go in, and in the first 4 weeks of the class where it would have been expected that you had been in Canvas a lot of hours by then, you've not been in Canvas 2 hours, and I can see that you haven't accessed any of the documents that I worked hard to provide for free. How much help am I going to give you? I mean, why should I? Go back to what I talked about with effort. You got to own it, people. You got to own it. And most of you will, and I appreciate that. And you know what? You're going to have a successful career. But know that as well. Canvas keeps track. So if you're not putting in the time that would be expected of someone taking a 3 ECH college credit course during whether it's an 8-week or 16-week, setting, and you should keep in mind that, so for a 16-week course, for a 3 ECH 3 credit course, the typical expectation is that you're going to spend 3 hours in class, right, sitting in a seat in a classroom, and you'd have another up to 3 hours outside of class doing preparation, reading, assignments, preparing for exams, whatever. So 6 hours a week. In an 8-week course, it'd be 12 hours a week. Those are the expectations. But know that that's all evidence that appears. Should also note that in my courses at least, we peer review and discuss most assignments. The instructor and every student can see the quality of your work. The time you put into the course, the planning you use to make time and effort to log in, to read, to listen, to prepare, to complete the assignment, and then the time you put into your assignment and your review of the assignment of fellow classmates, the discussions thereafter, is going to be evident to everybody. And experience has shown a clear connection to the effort and attention and your course grade, and more importantly, with the success you have later. And I can tell you about that, the success you have later. I know where my graduates are. I know what they're doing. I know how successful they are. The evidence doesn't lie. The student who commits to doing these things, planned, intentional, and to the best of their ability with the time and effort expected, always ends up among the most successful of our graduates. And I want to see you there. So let me talk about some more course-specific expectations and a little bit about details of the courses, at least my courses in particular. I want to circle back to the policy on AI tools in ChatGPT, and you can see those expectations in the syllabus. Don't use it. It's strictly prohibited. Now, I encourage you to use spell check and grammar check services like Grammarly is one. If you have a Google account, you can log into the Grammarly and it'll sync up to even in Canvas or your email or whatever and help you out with common spelling errors or some grammar expectations. You don't have to pay for the paid version. You can use the free version. I use Grammarly. I have it active. But you do the writing and it helps you along the way. It checks it. And again, no cut and paste. I do have a tool that will allow me to take whatever you post or write and take your information, and I can see where you got that information and if it is word for word and to what degree. So don't do it. But I do encourage you to use those types of services, spell check and grammar services. Do not have your document created by or cut and paste plagiarized by taking the information from other services. Now, what can you expect in the courses? You're going to expect a detailed syllabus that outlines the objectives of the course, the expectations of the course, and the expectations during grades in the course, including typical weekly deadlines that you'll see apply to most weeks, except the first and final weeks, which are always a little hinky based on other things we can't control, or holiday breaks as an example. For those weeks, I provide information you need, and if you're logging in and participating in the course on a regular basis, you should have no problem meeting those or any other deadlines. The syllabus also provides the topics to be covered each week of the course and the reading expectations and expectations for points and grades. For many of the courses, there is not a textbook or the often crazy high cost for a textbook. The law is public domain, meaning it is yours, it's mine, it's all of ours. And where possible, we help you learn where to find the law and how to use the law for your coursework and your life after graduation. So wherever possible, I provide either a document that I create or links to direct you to other free reading material, free sources, or sources that we have available through our library services that you have access to for free. Some of you have experienced Lexis as an example. If I have you go find your own case, that's a service that law firms pay a lot of money for. You have it available to you free. Or the Illinois Institute of Continuing Legal Education service, which provides you with all sorts of help of secondary sources in the law to help you understand specific types of things, which we use some of the ICL services or resources as an actual textbook in some classes. I'll provide you with guidance with clarification and feedback. I provide guidance initially by way of the podcast and course documents linked to the course site. I expect you to listen to any podcast provided in conjunction with the assigned reading for any given week in the course. Make time to do both, not an hour before the deadline, over the course of the week. And you have plenty of time to do this. Think of the podcast as a classroom lecture you're familiar with in a traditional college course. The difference is that if you did the prep work of the assigned reading, the podcast is going to go to the point, often with examples, insights, or help clarify, give you something towards learning the content. You can expect to continue your education in the law for many years to come in just this way. I do occasionally do continuing legal education courses in this way. I just did a course recently. I'm doing another one for the Police Training Center located in Arbor Hall that'll be completely podcast based and a or manual based. Done some of those. It's a convenient way to learn, but you have to use the resources. Second, where necessary, I make specific comments for all students. I may comment directly to one post out of concern or because you made a point everyone else needs to notice. And I do that after I think I missed that I do a detailed initial post, right? And then third, where necessary on larger projects, you'll find comments attached to your grade in the course grade book that then we can talk about in greater detail if you'd like. But I give you some insight as to where your grade came from if it was one of the larger projects where you're not getting, in the discussions type assignments, it's just a all or nothing, 50 points or not. You either meet the expectations of your original post and your reply post, or you don't. On some of the documents that you post in a class or the assignments that are more individual assignments, then you probably have comments in the grade book. I'm available to support you by telephone, text, remote, video, and whenever it's possible, we can meet one-on-one at the campus. I'll do what I can to help you navigate the course, the program, and get into the career. And, hopefully I'll still be around for a while because for many, many years, I've helped people navigate through the careers. I'm getting to be so old that a lot of those people are retired before me. I expect you to be available as well. I expect the same in return. I also expect that you communicate or be available to communicate with me. If you're going to be late with an assignment, the reasons and the contact need to reflect the type of reasons and contact we'd expect you to use with your employer. And remember, if you haven't logged into the course in a week and you don't log in until the deadline or after the deadline, what is your excuse exactly? Just remember what I said about Canvas, what it lets me see. I'm going to provide you with a map for you to move through the course, through the program, into the career, through the career. I'll help you develop your knowledge and your skills to find an internship or a job. I can provide you with advice for preparing for your career in general, interviewing for various positions, testing for various positions, preparing for a particular job, or for keeping or moving from that job to another opportunity years after you graduate. I stay in contact with the employers and our former students. I post internships and jobs on the ICC Law site. I coach and mentor students towards and into these jobs. I teach the interns, and I'll do whatever I can for you to be successful in your career. But most of it's going to fall on you, right? All the things I've talked about, your professionalism, your effort, your communication skills, how you've developed. Just as was the case when Doc Wright did that same thing for me many years ago, the opportunities that will come your way and what you do with those opportunities is a direct reflection of the time and effort you put into this course or these courses, our programs. So there you have it. That's your orientation to our programs, your course. Go log into the course, read the syllabus, get the due dates for week 1 and all the weeks thereafter in your calendar, and get to work. And as you'll hear me say at the conclusion of most of my podcasts, if you need me, you know where to find me.